This week on Dance of Joy, we talk about silly pseudo-sales, late-night lucidity, and sheep-shearing shivers. All that and more as we watch Season 2, Episode 15 of our favorite 80s hit sitcom, Perfect Strangers. Hello and welcome to Dance of Joy, a Perfect Strangers rewatch podcast. My name is Imran. Joining me every week, as always, my friendly and beautiful and smart sister.
Hello, I'm here, but I'm barely here. I'm really tired, but kind of wired at the same time, so looking forward to this show.
And your name is Sophia, which I forgot to mention.
And my name is Sophia, and I have not been sleeping well for several nights now.
Oh, well, that's interesting. If you got a little bit of the insomnia, that's perfect because, Sophia, we are up to Season 2, Episode 15 of our Perfect Strangers rewatch. This episode is titled Beautiful Dreamer.
Beautiful Dreamer. Isn't that the name of an 1865 standard song by Stephen Foster, which has been recorded countless times over the years?
Yes. Did you just read that from somewhere? I don't know how you knew that. This song also made famous by Roy Orbison and Bing Crosby. And, as always, cartoons. Look, you know this tune. Everyone out there listening doesn't know they know this tune. Picture any Tom and Jerry cartoon, Looney Tunes, any cartoon that starts early in the morning. This is the tune, the melody, the song they would use in cartoons to tell you the sun is rising. It's early in the morning. Is that bringing up anything for you? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I see the cartoon. I can't think of the music.
The music always goes do 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 do, and then you see like birds, and you hear them chirping.
Yeah,
and
you hear them chirping.
It's Beautiful Dreamer, and I was like, I know this song from cartoons again.
Very nice, very nice. Good job. Points to you. If you were to open the TV guide in 1987. The description for this show read, Larry tries to persuade Balky to discuss his nightmare in hopes of curing Balky's insomnia.
And if you have a TV guide from 1987, that's worth money. Put it in a plastic sleeve. Keep it safe.
This episode, as always, stars Bronson Pinchot and Marklyn Baker and a few other people. And it aired on January 28th, 1987.
Act 1 opens in the apartment in the middle of the night. And some weird things are happening here right away, Sophia. You notice Balky is wearing a yellow pajama suit with what appears to be like a cowboy western theme on it.
Yeah, it looks like cowboys with lassos.
There's boots and like sheriff stars and a lasso.
Yellow. Yes, yellow with red boots.
Cowboy riding a horse. And did you see his footwear?
He's wearing ballet slippers.
What are we talking about?
Yes, he's wearing some weird, these Mepposian...
what looks like ballet slippers.
I imagine it's a Mepposian sleep slippers, because of course they're going to have slippers. So not only is he's wearing this funny outfit, he's moving all the furniture around. The sofa cushions are off the sofa. The coffee table, he's dragging the coffee table off the middle of the room, and all of this is making a lot of noise.
What is he doing?
I don't know.
So Larry, we just hear Larry's voice from his bedroom going, Balky? Balky, is that you? Balky? And finally, we hear the door open. Larry starts coming out of his bedroom, and Balky panics and turns off the lights and hides around the corner.
Yeah, it's so weird.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know why he was panicking, but Larry comes out and trips over some of the furniture and face plants into some couch cushions on the floor. Very funny physical comedy right at the top of the show.
Great flop by Marklyn Baker. And then Balky runs over, turns the lights on, hops over the couch, plops down next to him on another sofa cushion that's on the floor to ask his cousin if he's all right. Balky goes, it's a good thing I put that cushion there. You would have hurt yourself. Larry just goes, yes, it's a real piece of luck.
So Larry, of course, is annoyed and is like, what is happening here? Why are you rearranging the furniture in the middle of the night? Balky says, interesting question, and tells him that he needs more room for aerobics.
Okay.
And he's starts to do a leg lift for his glutes and some stretching and stuff. And Larry's like, Balky, why are you doing aerobics at 3 a.m. We need to sleep in 4 hours. It's going to be Twinkassetti's monthly going out of business sale.
Yes.
Love that line.
Okay,
Love it.
There's some good sales in this episode, and I have so many thoughts. Twinkassetti's monthly going out of business sale. Fabulous.
Yes.
Fantastic.
So Twinkassetti.
Yes.
And so he's like, we need to sleep because it sounds like it's this crazy like Black Friday-ish situation. And Balky's like, I have a friend who can't sleep. Is there something wrong with him? And Larry's like, are you having trouble sleeping? Balky's like, of course not. Don't be ridiculous. It's my friend. It's my best friend. And Larry's like, I'm your best friend. And Balky gives us a classic. That's a good point. That's a very good point.
That's a very good point. He did it last episode, and he does it again this episode. Turns out, we find out, Balky has had trouble sleeping for the past 4 nights in a row. Now, Sophia,
rough.
I think we've all suffered insomnia, and I believe legally, if you are up for 3 days, like you could get away with committing murder and stuff. I believe that's the loophole.
I don't know. Lawyers, if you're listening,
that's what I saw.
My brother on that.
Law and Order. Dun, dun. Anyways, Balky can get away with anything now. He hasn't slept in 4 nights. Larry walks Balky over to the sofa, sits him down with him, and explains that what Balky has, he says, you have a classic case of insomnia. And now Balky is suddenly scared and horrified. He goes, I knew it was something terrible. He goes, okay, give it to me straight. How long have I got? And then Larry just calmly goes, 50 or 60 years. Balky goes, 50 or 60 years. Oh, my God. A slow death.
So, of course, Larry's like, no, insomnia is just what it's called when you can't sleep. And then Balky is happy again, like a child. He's swinging his feet like he does. He goes into the thing about Balky's character. He goes from like profound and wise to very childlike back and forth.
On a dime.
So now we see childlike Balky swinging his feet. He's happy. And Larry's like, I will help you fall asleep. And Balky's like, how?
How you do this?
He doesn't. How you do that?
How you do this?
And then this is very interesting bit of cross-cultural exchange here because Larry asks Balky, well, how do people usually fall asleep on Mypos? And Balky says they close their eyes and they wait for Princess Riva.
Oh.
And who is Princess Riva? She's the beautiful fairy princess who holds all the sleeping people in her arms and protects them until morning.
Sounds comfortable and safe.
And he innocently looks at Larry. He sees that Larry's just staring at him and he goes, don't she come to America? And Larry goes, no, she don't come to America. I love it when he does the same accent and stuff. And Larry's like, well, duh, here we wait for the Sandman.
Yes.
And then Balky's like, what does he do? And he says he makes you sleepy by throwing sand in your eyes.
What?
And Balky's like, well, I'll hold out for Princess. Okay, yeah.
I'm
so like
Balky.
Just like we saw earlier about the lullabies, about the cradle falling out of the tree.
Yes.
What is up with all our horrifying customs? Like, what is the story? I'm sure there's some backstory about the Sandman that we should probably look up, but like, it's a terrible thing to go for sleep.
Fantastic jazz standard tune, but if you actually think about this horrifying thing that comes, have you ever had sand thrown in your eyes?
Yeah, it's not
a
fun.
Pleasant experience. And the last thing I'm doing is falling asleep.
Yeah, it's not making you sleepy.
When
it's
I
like
have
scratching your
scratched
eyeballs.
corneas. Yes, thanks, Sandman. Boo.
So again, this little innocent cross-cultural exchange where like the out there foreigner has a very lovely, normal sounding custom and the American has a custom which we might all take to be normal at first, but once you break it down, it's actually really strange.
Who is really the civilized person here? That's the question.
Well, they're both civilized.
Who
Let's not use words like that.
Who is the barbarians? Who are the civilized? Anyways, Balky lies down on the couch as Larry. So Larry in this episode he displays a bunch of really interesting skills. Later we'll get to psychiatry, but here Larry is very experienced in guided meditation. He lies Balky down on the couch, explains he's going to try some guided meditation and get Balky to say goodnight to all his body parts of the body, starting with his toes. And Balky is skeptical because Larry goes, say goodnight to your toes, Balky.
Balky's like, what?
He goes, you want me to say goodnight to my toes? But he eventually starts doing it, and by the time he gets to his fingers, Balky's out like a light. And Larry's satisfied. He gets up, pulls up his pajamas. He's like, where would this kid be without me?
Oh, gosh, Larry.
He's helped him out. But As Larry's about to walk away, he notices Balky start muttering and moving and saying mama in his sleep. And then Balky clutches his chest and screams and sits up.
Like screams, like terrified screams.
This is a night terror scream. And Larry's like, oh my God, are you okay? Balky goes, what happened? Larry says, you were sleeping and then you had a bad dream and woke up. He goes, do you remember anything from your dream? Balky goes, of course I don't. Don't be ridiculous. I was asleep. But I'm wide awake now. My heart is beating like a little boonie rabbit.
Boonie rabbit.
Larry offers a boonie rabbit. Larry's like, look, I'll stay up with you to help you go to sleep. Balky's like, look, it's not necessary. Thank you. And Larry says, this can't go on forever, Balky. Sooner or later, your body is going to tell you when it needs to sleep. And Balky's like, well, when they tell me, I let you know, cousin. And then it's about to leave. He goes, oh, wait, nothing. My body was just saying I'm hungry. And then he lets him go. It's a dumb joke. But that's how they
end it. And then that's like a pretty quick, concise Act 1. We move into Act 2. We open Act 2 at Ritz Discount the next morning. The cousins are opening the shop. They're getting ready for this monthly going out of business sale.
It's time for the sale.
And you notice right away a flimsy, like freestanding table in the middle of the showroom, as we often see, with a sale sign, as we often see different things on this sale table.
What's on sale for this going out of sale business?
This time, it's a bunch of dishes and cups and saucers, like precariously stacked, like Jenga style. And you just know, as a consumer of sitcom television,
that should be fine.
That table
talking about?
Should be just fine.
I don't think this table is going to be a problem later.
Nope. So Larry's like telling Balky, you must be exhausted. You haven't slept. You should go home. And Balky's like, no, he's done 4 nights. He can do one more. He's here to help him with the sale. He's like, look at all the people out there. And then we see the door, and it is like this crazy Black Friday shopping mob.
Oh, my God.
But here's the thing, like, how are they marketing this rando Ritz discount store that there's this crazy mob of people dying to get in for a sale?
Well, it's a monthly, so every month they know. But there is an angry mob of middle-aged women in housecoats out there.
Yes.
Waiting to just destroy the place. It's amazing.
And then we see, so they're all outside the door still. Then we see Twink Cassetti make his way through the mob and like smush his face against the glass door.
They're going to crush him. Somebody help Twink Cassetti.
So Larry runs to the door, opens it, which opens outward, which is awkward.
Yeah, this is not a good idea also.
Pulls Twink Cassetti through, and then shuts the door. And then Ernie Sabella, the great Ernie Sabella, has 2 great lines. He's like, you'd think I was having a real sale.
Yeah, it's so funny.
People are so gullible.
That's it. He has 2 lines, and they're fantastic, and he delivers them perfectly.
So great. Whoever wrote his lines is like...
This is like a soccer riot crowd waiting out there, right? So it's kind of scary. Larry looks around suddenly and realizes Balky is missing. Where did Balky go? He spots the table in the foreground with a sheet on it, runs over, pulls the sheet, and Balky's taking a nap on a pile of T-shirts. This is not good. Larry pulls him up, and Balky says, remember when you told me my body would tell me when it's time to sleep? Well, it's talking to me like crazy. And then just passes back out on the table. Larry pulls him up again, saying they have to get Balky upstairs into bed. Larry pulls Balky off the table, but then he just slumps down right onto the floor.
Dead weight. Then we move into a bit of physical comedy with Balky as this like dead weight.
This is
Think
great.
like Weekend at Bernie's. Balky lands face down with Larry on top of him, and he gets up and he turns around. Okay, and so Balky's face down. Larry's turns around facing Balky's legs, and he's straddling Balky and tries to pull him up by the hips. And then Balky gets up and he knocks Larry forward the opposite way onto the table. I don't know if that made any sense, but
I think it's about that tracks. That tracks.
And then Larry finally manages to get Balky up and thinks it's a good idea to try to get out through the shopping.
I don't understand.
Mob.
Larry's plan.
Through the mob. He's like, let's go out the front door.
The front door that opens out into a huge crowd of crazy shoppers.
They don't have a back door to this place or an internal stairwell.
This is not going to work.
So he tries to escape out that front door. And once they open the door outward, by the way, all these women shoppers come in, swarm Ritz Discount, and they carry Balky with them like surfing the crowd back into the store,
so
right?
Great. Yeah.
And Balky spins around half conscious in front of the china dishes.
Oh, no, the china dishes.
Yeah, and he does this like very cartoony, comical, like back bend over. It's very curvy.
Yeah.
And you think he's going to fall on top of those dishes, but Larry catches him, grabs him. And then he pulls him away, and he's like, the best thing for you to do is stay out of the way. And he puts him on that vintage barber chair that we always see.
Yeah.
And Balky kind of like slumps over and like falls asleep. And Larry walks away. And then this lady carrying a television, a tube television.
An old tube TV. It's huge.
It's huge, but it's small. It's like a small but bulky tube television. And she carries it to Balky. And she's like, do you work here? How much does this cost? And Balky is delirious, and he just goes, I'll put that in your car for you. And he takes the TV, and he stands up, and he, again, almost backs into the china table.
Oh, no, the dishes.
Larry saves him again. The dishes are still good. The dishes are still good.
He's so bendy in this, Bronson Pinchot. So it's amazing. He's just like a wet noodle back and forth.
Well, I mean, he was like a 20-something-year-old guy.
Very flexible. Yeah. Limber.
So Larry's holding Balky, who's holding the TV, and then the lady's standing there, and Larry gets the lady to like take the TV back. He's like, can you just hold that? And he throws Balky back on the barber chair, and he's like, stay here. And Balky passes out, and Larry grabs the out to lunch sign from the signs rack behind him and puts it on Balky.
It's a good thing that sign's
like, around his neck. And then he turns around to help this woman with the television, right? Yeah. And he says, so here's a little insight into the sale. And this television, this tube television that's like small enough to carry, it's $89, marked down from $92.
That's pretty expensive for 1986 prices. Not much of a savings there.
Right, and even the woman thinks so because she says, I thought you said this was a sale.
I mean, it's a discount of what? Maybe 0.5%.
Well, it's a Twinkasetti style sale.
Twinkasetti
he still wants
discount,
to make his money. So then Balky's fallen asleep right on the chair. But remember what happened last time he fell asleep? He had his nightmare. Uh-oh. So he starts to have the nightmare again, and he screams out loud. And this woman next to him screams and gets frightened and startled. And he sits up, and the woman who was startled like races out of the store, and then
there's a chain of events here. It was a chain of events right here.
One woman runs out. Yeah. Balky screams. One woman gets startled. She runs out the store. She scares the other woman who is holding the television. She throws it up in the air, much like the burgers and the duck.
This is a strong woman or a really light television. I don't know which.
It seemed like a really light television. But, throws the TV up in the air. Larry lunges for the television set. He catches it. But, of course, there go the display of dishes.
The dishes, the third time. He couldn't save it.
And they all go crashing. The table topples over. They all go crashing to the ground. He's holding the TV, all these broken dishes in front of him. The woman scuttles away. Twinkasetti comes up. He's pissed. He sees, and he's like, you broke it. You bought it.
I forgot he does have one more line, and it's fantastic.
And then he slaps Larry on the back, causing him to also drop the television set.
And there goes the television. So Larry owes him. Does he have to pay $89 or the full? He's going to make him pay the full $92.
That's like plus, at least a few paychecks.
Those dishes probably weren't cheap, but they shouldn't have put that table there. I don't know why they thought that was a good idea. Anyways, there goes the sale. Later that night, we cut to later in the apartment. Larry is carrying many books with him. He places them on the coffee table as him and Balky both sit, and they're getting ready to figure out Balky's problem. Larry says, we have to make sure you don't stay up another 3 days, then fall asleep during Mr. Twinkasetti's annual water damage sale. You know what? Twinkasetti is a marketing genius. Can I just say this?
I want to see Twinkasetti's calendar of all the sales. Like, can someone submit some fan fiction with Twinkasetti's calendar of all his different sales?
In the winter, it just says Black Friday, Red Friday, Purple Friday, Yellow Friday, just like every color. He's like, I'm going to have a sale. Annual water damage sale. Anyways, Larry's found some of his old college psychology books. I guess Larry was a psych major. To help them find out what's causing Balky's nightmares. He goes, the answer is inside your head. We have to get in there, find out what we're looking for. This makes Balky a little nervous, and he goes, does this involve cutting? Larry just ignores the question and continues. and explains that in college they studied ways to get into the subconscious. He's going to start with some good old-fashioned word association. Everybody's done this, right? Good old-fashioned word association. And it starts out normally enough. Larry says in, Belky goes out. Larry says up, Belky says down. And Belky's very excited. He goes, oh, I'm good at this game. I like this. Because there's no wrong answer. So this is a great game. And then Larry says black. Belky says white. You do short, tall. Larry says door. Belky says eggs. Larry says, I say door and you think eggs. Belky goes right. Larry goes wrong. Belky goes, see, you're good at it too. This is a clue, though. Why would Belky say eggs?
So Larry's like, Larry being Larry. Okay, first of all, we also in this episode see Larry being that mansplainer, know-it-all, Larry splainer a lot. Yeah. Okay, so Larry's like, that makes no sense. Even though just a moment ago he said there are no wrong answers. He says, that makes no sense. Belky's like, yes, it does, because I remember the time my Uncle Stavros closed Aunt Sophia's hand in the door and they had to take her to the doctor, but he charged so much money they couldn't pay it, so they had to give him 12 eggs from their hen Hilda every week for a year. So you see, it makes perfect sense. And don't you feel just a little bit stupid?
I love how he says that. Don't you feel just a little bit stupid, cousin?
So Larry has to move on to try something else. And then he explains in college, first of all, Larry is this classic, like 25-year-old guy who was like, I learned this in college, therefore I'm an expert. Let me pull out my...
about psychology.
I hate when people are like, oh, I learned this in my like intro to psychology college class, so let me tell you about
what's funny? The John Oliver, last week at John Oliver, he ran a clip about everybody on the news media saying they went to Harvard. And they're like, and it's clip after clip of these news guys. Well, I went to Harvard. Back at Harvard. I went to Harvard. Actually, I went to Harvard. Back at Harvard. God. And it just went on. And I was like,
that's what
my
Larry
God.
would be like, right? So he's like, in college, we had an exercise where we went back into the dream state. And Belky goes, would that be New Jersey?
That's a great line.
And Larry says, that's the Garden State.
This is so fun. I just love his reaction. He goes, would that be New Jersey?
That's a great exchange.
This is so funny.
So Larry's like, no, this exercise is going to help you relive the dream. And he starts by asking Belky to clear his mind of all thoughts. And he starts to explain. Larry explains, he's like, I know it's not easy, but you have to concentrate. And then Belky cuts him off. He's like, nope, I did it. My mind is empty. And he like makes this face with his eyes rolled back into his head.
Not hard for Belky to clear his mind, apparently.
No, which is like pretty sophisticated,
it's
actually.
It's hard to do, honestly.
Yeah.
Very hard
He's
to
more
do.
evolved.
Yes.
So Larry encourages Belky to go back into his dream and tell him what he sees.
Ooh.
Okay? So Belky says he sees little white cars and their engines are running like thunder. And he wants to run, but he can't move. And they're coming closer to him and he's afraid they're going to crush him.
Oh, no.
And then Larry sees that Belky is becoming scared and he eases him back and Belky's like fanning himself anxiously and nervously. And he says, whoa, baby, we should have gone to New Jersey.
He should have gone to New Jersey.
The Garden State, not the Dream State.
The Dream State's better, but he just snaps out of this thing. And Larry asks Belky if this is the same dream he's had for the past few nights. And Belky says he thinks so. Larry says the only way Belky can get rid of the nightmare is to figure out what it means, and they have to talk about it. And Belky does not want to do this. He immediately refuses, saying, cousin, before I talk about that dream again, it'll be a cold day in December.
That was a great line. It'll be a cold day in December.
Which is him messing up the line about being a cold day in June.
You know what's funny about this line, though?
Yeah.
You know what's funny about this line? Like, we're in 2021.
Yes.
Give us 5 more years, and it will actually be a funny line.
Yes, it'll be like, oh, remember when December used to be cold?
It will be a cold day in December, and all the kids will be like,
we get it.
It's 100 degrees out there.
Remember when the seasons used to be in different parts of the year? That was great. So Belky runs into the bathroom, locks the door, and that's the end of Act 2. Listener, before we find out what happens and give you Act 3, we got something new to reveal here. We now have a way, Sophia, for the listener to support the show. If you love the show, you want to support the show, and kind of, it puts some wind beneath our wings, as Bette Midler would say, and it helps us keep going. Visit our website. You can click. There's a button. It says buy us a coffee. It actually says buy
Oh my
me
God,
a
coffee does help keep me going.
Yes, coffee helps.
I
both
love coffee.
you, me, and Larry Appleton are here. So it's a virtual tip jar, right? Imagine like you walk by a street musician back when there was street musicians.
Oh no, I saw some today.
Oh, you did?
I did.
If they're really good, you toss them a dollar, you toss them some change. You can do the same thing here. Visit danceofjoypod.com/support. It'll take you right to our Buy Us a Coffee page. You could do a one-time donation, or there's a membership, and we'll probably offer some things as it goes. But the thing is, sister, I don't know if people realize, like, making podcasts is fun, but it also does cost a little bit of money. There are ongoing costs for web hosts and maintenance and equipment. So,
a little bit.
Yeah.
Buy us a coffee if you want. We'll appreciate it.
If we made you laugh and we've brought back nostalgia, show us some love. Visit danceofjoypod.com/support. All right, back into it. Act 3, Sophia.
Act 3 opens in the wee early hours of the morning, and now we have Jennifer and Marianne with the boys in the apartment, and they're all looking at these books, and they're all sitting around. They're all there to help Balky get to the bottom of this. This is how close these friends have gotten.
Nice.
They're all there trying to help Balky.
Yeah, that's nice of them in the middle of the night.
So Larry's trying to get more info out of Balky about his dream, but Balky keeps coming up with distractions, like he's trying to avert it, dodge all the questions. He's like, I'll make popcorn, I'll make hot chocolate. Marianne is, being Marianne. She's all happy and smiling. She's like, this is fun. She's like, I've never been to a dream interpretation party before.
That's what this is. It's a dream interpretation party.
And Jennifer's a little more skeptical. And she tells Larry, like, look, I'm getting the feeling that Balky doesn't want to talk about his dream. And Larry brings Balky back from the kitchen. He says, Balky, it's 3 a.m. You have to solve your problem. You cannot let this nightmare take over your life. And he brings Balky back to the couch. Balky says he doesn't want to talk about it.
Nope.
Jennifer is trying to pitch in. She's like, everyone has nightmares. It's okay. Then Marianne out of nowhere says, dreams are nothing more than windows to our subconscious. They should be open to let in the fresh air of reason.
What?
And everyone is stunned.
What?
And just stares at her, stunned. And Larry is like, Marianne, did you just read that? And this is a great Marianne line. She goes, no, sometimes late at night I start to make sense.
What? This is hilarious.
And Larry looks at Jennifer, and Jennifer just gives him this, like, I know look. And she's like, scary, huh?
I just love the idea that Marianne sometimes late at night just becomes lucid and smart and has these profound thoughts out of nowhere.
Yeah. And we'll see this again and again as we get to know them more. Like, most of the time she's like a little goofy, but every now and then she'll say something
Sometimes
profound.
late at night I start to make sense. Oh my God, that's fantastic. Anyways, though, it's 3 a.m. and the girls have to leave because they're flight attendants. They have an early flight. Jennifer goes, if we don't get some sleep, we'll wind up spilling things on the passengers. Marianne goes, they hate that. And then as they're leaving, Marianne, of course, innocent, awkward, saying the wrong things, Marianne goes, pleasant dreams. And then she's like, okay, whoops, sorry.
Like, whoops.
And then as they leave, Larry wishes Jennifer good night, and she smiles at him, but you notice doesn't go in
kiss
for the kiss. There's still a weird, awkward thing.
And he's still waiting for it, but she doesn't do it. She just spins around and leaves.
What's the deal with their They just had a nice dinner last week. What is Is she playing with his heart? I'm getting mad.
No, she's just being safe.
Okay.
She's being a smart woman.
Okay. They live in the building. It's all
There's plenty of time. There
is. There's many seasons. There's at least 5 more seasons to get through. Yes.
So then they leave, and Balky's like, let's go to an all-night movie. He grabs their jackets. Larry's like, no, we need to figure out the dream so we can all get some sleep. Balky's like, I'm not going to talk about it. Larry says, fine, I'll figure it out myself.
Okay.
And he heads to the couch with a psych book. And Balky puts on his coat, and he starts to walk out the door. And just as he's walking out, Larry, like pretending to read the book, goes, aha. Oh, well,
Whoa.
Funny that these are psychology tricks, right?
Yeah.
You're reading a psychology book. And then
trick.
Balky, of course, this gets Balky's attention, and he starts creeping back into the apartment. And Larry, like, looking over Larry's shoulder, and Larry's like, isn't that something? As he's looking in the book. And Larry notices Balky looking and he like hides the book, covers the book like kids do. Balky walks over. He sits down next to Larry. Cousin, I want to see the book.
I want to see the book.
Larry refuses until Balky starts to go, because I want to see the book. The way he does. And then he's like, okay, I'll let you see the book if you give me one piece of information.
Oh, smart move.
And he says, where are the cars in your dream going? And Balky hesitates and he answers, into a big garage. Let me see the book. And he goes for the book. And Larry pulls it out of his reach. And then he goes, why? Then he asks him why the cars are going into the garage. And Balky says, I don't know why they're going into the barn. And he reaches for the book again. And then Larry pulls it back again. And he's like, do you know what this means? You said barn.
Yeah.
And Balky's like, you're not going to give me the book? And, but he's like, but you said barn. That's a clue, right? So he points out that cars don't belong in barns, animals do. And so the cars must represent some kind of animal. Now, this next exchange is very, very much Larry embodying what I call like the typical man in a staff meeting.
Yes.
All right?
Yes.
And ladies, I know you know what I'm talking about here because this is how the conversation goes. Larry's like, it must be an animal. Right? He knows. He's determined. And he's like, rabbits, cats, dogs. And Balky's like, sheep. And Larry's like, no, it has to be some kind of farm animal. Horses. Balky says, sheep. And Larry's like, I've got it. Cows. And Balky says, sheep. And then Larry's like, sheep. Yes. As if he thought of it. He just repeats somebody else's idea that had been repeated a few times, but doesn't accept it until it comes out of his own mouth.
This is how some people get through their workday, is by doing exactly this tactic.
Some people rise to the highest ranks of leadership in our country. Anyway, rant over. End rant. More on that in my other podcast. Larry, I just wanted to point out that exchange kind of frustrated me to watch. It was hard to watch. I was like,
he's not listening, and it doesn't count until he says it.
Oh, Larry, we love him, but, he has his faults. So then Larry's like a little bit confused because he's like, why would you be afraid of sheep? And Belly says, I don't know. I love sheep. Sheep are man's best friend. And Larry's like, well, maybe you only think you love sheep, but maybe you're jealous of all the attention your parents gave the sheep. And Balky shoots us down right away. He's like, no, they treated us all equally.
He was treated equal as the sheep, as the children. So Larry asks, like, why would you be dreaming of sheep now? And then suddenly Balky gets it. He announces the answer as if it should be obvious to everyone. He goes, oh, it's Bubble Tide, of course.
Of course,
it's Bubble Tide. He grabs the book, and Larry grabs the book back. He goes, what's Bubble Tide?
I love that little grabbing the book back and forth.
Yeah, he never gets the book. What's Bubble Tide? Balky starts to explain. It's the time of the year when the Meepiat people shear off all the wool of the sheep to sell to get money. He says the whole family gets up very early because the wool buyer comes to Meepos for 1 day only, and if the wool is not ready when he comes, then he goes right on to the next farm, and then perhaps we don't have any money for food. Balky then confesses that he's worried because he's not there this year for Bubble Tide to help. And he goes, maybe, and it's so sincere, and it made me almost cry. He goes, and maybe they don't finish in time, and they will end up being hungry, and it's my fault. This is what's weighing on his shoulder.
Heavy.
It's very heavy. I feel so bad. I was like, oh my God, Balky. Larry obviously realizes, Balky, you feel guilty about what's going on, and this is what's causing your nightmare. He goes, we'll call your family, and you tell them that you're sorry you can't be there, and that'll relieve your conscience. But Balky says they're probably tired from working too much, and there's only one phone on Meepos, which is way on the other side of the island. And then after they get the messenger pigeon, then they have to pack a lunch. They get an ox cart, drive many, many miles to get to the phone booth. And Larry just looks at him and goes, one phone. And Balky goes, well, yes, but it has call waiting.
So I love what they did here. I just want to stop for a moment because they took something very heavy and emotional that is also very relatable to any immigrant anywhere, whether immigrants coming this way to our country or going to another country, any kind of migrant that migrates for like economic reasons or opportunity. Very relatable, right? You have this guilt that like, well, I can't relate because I didn't do that, but our parents did, and a lot of people we know did. But you have this guilt that like you've left responsibilities behind, but on the flip side, you've come for opportunities and for ultimately helping them. But what they did here in this scene is they took this very heavy, emotional, relatable problem and immediately followed it with something so light and funny.
Yeah.
And so they brought you down and then brought you back up again, like back to back. And I think it's that dance thing we were talking about.
No, that's a great observation. First of all, like the immigrant responsibility to come here, I think about people who like they send money back to their parents, their country.
Yeah, of course.
And like that's their contribution. They wish they could be there, but they're here for a better life. But then to subvert that and give us this joke, and both things giving you so much detail about Meepos,
so much
right?
detail.
You
That's
learned
right.
so many things now. There's one
That's
phone.
exactly right.
And
So it's that one scene is
wonderful writing in this one monologue. Just amazing writing. Yeah.
Exchanges so quick. You're right. We have an emotional roller coaster. We have lightness and heaviness, and we have so much information about
crying,
Meepos.
I'm laughing, and now I learn about Meepos, and now we
know
get
more about Meepos.
Now we get to a great scene with more Meepos family.
Right. So we move to the next scene. Larry places the call. He goes to the phone by the front door. Remember, there's 2 phones in this apartment. Somehow knows all the numbers in his head to call Meepos.
I imagine it took a lot of time just to start the call, get them on the aux card, get the messenger pigeon, wait for them to come back.
So it like fades to the next scene, and Balky's on the phone, and Larry's standing next to him. Okay. Like trying to follow along and asking, what are they saying? What are they saying? And Balky puts his hand over the, like removes the receiver from his
Balky's
ear.
speaking Meposian this whole time to his
and
to Meepos.
You know this, but listeners might not know this. I'm a bit of a language nerd.
This is all made up garbage.
I play with a lot of languages.
Yeah.
I think, and if we have other like linguists who are listening, please feel free to chime in. It sounds like just made up silliness that Bronson Pinchot would say. It has hints and sounds of Greek here and there, but they're not quite the full like Greek words.
But the tone and the context, like you can kind of understand what he's saying.
Yeah. And we see that with Meposian for the rest of the series too. Sometimes it's like very obvious. What do we call it? Cognates with English words, like words that are you can tell what the English words are, but they're said in a Meposian way. Anyway, so that's my 2 cents, my deep thoughts on it.
It's a lot of fake Meposian though in this scene.
Yeah, and a lot of it sounds quite silly, but it's fun to hear. So Balky like pulls the phone away from his ear, and he tells Larry that he's told them that he feels bad because he can't be there for the sheep shearing. And as he's talking to Larry, we hear his mama's voice from the phone receiver go, Balky!
Balky!
Real loud.
It's
and
so
that Balky becomes a common thing about Balky's mama. We're going to hear this a lot over the next 6 seasons or whatever.
Balky! It's great.
Balky! And it's through the phone all the time. Yeah. So we hear Balky, and Balky jumps, and he's like, oh, and he puts his, he goes back to the phone. Then he becomes excited again. And Larry's like, what now? What are they saying? And Balky again, like pulls away from the phone, and he explains that they bought an electric sheep shearer with the money that he sent them from America. So here we have that idea again that it's a trade-off about how you help your family.
Yeah.
And then he's talking to Larry, and again we hear through the phone, Balky! And Balky like jumps again, and he starts listening in, and he talks again, a lot of Meposian. And then he tells Larry they finished their work in half the time, and they had a big celebration. And then we hear Balky! And then he goes back to the phone. He finishes up the call with his mama. She wants him to throw her kisses over the phone. And so he does some kisses over the phone, and then he holds up the phone for Larry, and Larry also does some kisses. So cute.
Kisses to mama. You got to send kisses. That's his aunt, right? Yeah, it's his aunt. He never met her.
Yeah. And so then they hang up, and then we hear the music. Then it's lesson time.
Lesson time music. And at the end of the conversation, Balky is very quiet and kind of
quiet.
At
he's
peace.
Satisfied. He's pensive.
He's
reflecting.
He walks to the couch. He sits down. Larry follows him, asks him. He's like, "Are you okay, buddy?" And Balky has a look on his face. He goes, cousin, what do you call the thing when something squeeze your heart and make you wish you were with your family? Larry says that's called being homesick, buddy, and it's perfectly natural to miss your family and want to be with them. And Balky says he's happy he came to America, and Larry is good family to him. He says, but once in a while, when I know my Meepos family is all together, then I wish I was in my chair at the table because Papa sits here, Uncle Stavros sits there, and it's a place of honor, you know.
Yeah.
Larry says maybe Balky should call home more often. He says it won't be like being in your chair, but at least you'll hear the voices. It's a good point.
So now we have the exchange of lessons or reflections. And Balky tells Larry he's sorry that he made so much trouble for him, and Larry assures him it's okay.
Larry got to mansplain. Larry's digging it. He got to pull out his psych books.
Yeah, he got to pull out his college level psychology expertise. And he says, I was just worried about you. And Balky says he's glad that Larry made him look Mr. Fear right in the face. And then he says he's not so bad when you realize he's just a sheep. Mr. Fear is a sheep.
Yes.
And Larry says that he knows Balky would do the same for him. And then Balky's like, listen, if anything is ever bothering you, you let me know too. And Larry's like, well, there is something I've been wanting to talk to you about. It's just been things are so hectic. We haven't had a time. But, and just as he starts to get into it, he looks over and Balky's out.
Yeah.
He fell
Head's
asleep.
falling over. But
sitting
it doesn't
on the couch,
matter.
snoring with his mouth open. But Larry continues anyway. He's like, this thing with Jennifer, I don't know if she has feelings for me or what, and blah, blah, blah. And we roll the credits, and it's over.
Okay, that tag scene, what's the deal with their relationship? He is still so unclear. Everyone's unclear.
What, Jennifer?
Him and Jennifer, he's still thinking about it. I just think it's a great thread.
I just get these vibes that he is way more into her and she's kind of thinking about it, but not fully sure.
He's going to have to break her down slowly over time with his
that was his plan
with
all
his
along.
awkward charm and no lip kiss.
Yeah, so she feels like she's not super into it, but she's considering it. I don't know.
Plus, he needs to get this off his chest. It doesn't matter if Balky's sleeping.
Right. Because they're best friends and they help each other.
So I love the sentimental ending. I got to tell you, my favorite gag. Let's go back to Twinkassetti's sales.
Yeah.
Twinkassetti sales, the monthly going out of business sale, the annual water damage sale reminded me of something I experienced growing up, Sophia.
What's that?
Let's see if you can see where I'm going with this. It reminded me of a street we grew up on called Devon Avenue.
Uh-huh. Chicago listeners, you'll know it well.
Yeah, but we have to explain Devon Avenue before I go on with the story.
So the quick contemporary explanation would be something like it's Little India, right? Indian, South Asian shops, from clothing to restaurants to groceries to salons, etc. But it actually has a really super interesting and storied past in that a number of different ethnic groups have come through and occupied, for lack of a better word, that strip of street over the eras. And as the next group would come in, the previous group would sort of push out to the edges of that strip of the street. So we had Eastern Europeans, we've had Orthodox Jews, we've had so now it's kind of a mishmash, and it's really a great place. My favorite thing right now, me having grown up and learned a bunch of languages, now when I go back, there's one place, there's this one pharmacy that says pharmacy in 3 of the languages that I actually know and 3 of the alphabets. And I love this shop because I know,
So that's
great.
Funny you mentioned the sign on the window, because that's kind of where I'm going. So for the listener, from our point of view, it's kind of where in the late 70s, early 80s, all the Pakistani immigrant people landed in Chicago. And if you go there at night, it's like you are in a street in Karachi. It's like you are in a street in Mumbai. It's kind of famous around the country, around the world.
Among South Asians, yeah.
People come here to get... But growing up, it took me a while to realize the funniest thing. So on Devon, there's sari stores, right? The saris. Todd's Sari Palace, India's Sari Palace.
Yeah.
And
sorry for the listeners, because you're listening to Sari, Sari, the clothing. Yeah.
Well, and then this would happen on stores. Like the funniest thing is like the shops would have, you'd either have to buy like luggage or batteries or film or pots and pans. That's
film
all they had.
Batteries,
film and batteries, and all of it was like off the truck
and
stuff.
phone cards.
Yes, and phone cards.
International.
Anyways, for years I'm looking at the windows, and suddenly it hits me that all these stores have the word sale painted on the window. Now, what is the definition of a sale?
Everything was always on sale.
It was always on sale, just like Twinkassetti.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, they're having
Maybe
a sale.
Twinkassetti is like
he picked it up from Devon Avenue. Like there's if it's always a sale, then it's not a
Never
sale.
a sale.
People.
Yeah.
It's not. What are you doing?
A good point.
So for years, I just laugh every time. I'm like, it has the word sale painted on the window in front.
Is it still?
So I think
they
they
still
still
have
do.
those
They
words?
don't know
Okay.
what they're doing. They
Anyway.
probably still do.
Yeah, but like, yeah.
That's what I thought of right away when I heard of it sales. I was like, oh, it's like Devon Avenue with
a
the
funny
sale.
reflection. All right, interesting facts about this show. This is the first time, as we mentioned, we hear Mama's trademark Balki
Yeah.
coming through the phone. But again, we're going to hear that again.
And during that part, if you listen to it,
Yeah.
you hear Balki say, don't be ridiculous in Miposian,
Miposian.
but you can tell he's saying it,
Yeah.
by the rhythm and the context and the way he
like
says
word ridiculous is like ridiculous.
it. Yeah, it's very close. And I'm like, oh, he just said, don't be ridiculous in Miposian. Also, Jennifer Marianne, Melanie Wilson, and Rebecca Arthur, their screen credits would continue to appear at the end of the shows this season. Next season, they would get moved to the front. But this season, interesting to note, they would flip who gets the top billing.
Oh,
to make it even. Sometimes it would be Rebecca Arthur. Sometimes it was me. I wonder if that was in their contract. They're like, no, we have to be.
Maybe.
But then they get moved top billing, of course, for the next season.
Of course, because they become bigger.
Yeah.
Bigger parts of the guy's
As
lives.
Jennifer and Larry figure out what their relationship
Like,
is.
what is going on there? Okay. Did you happen to see Dimitri in this episode?
I noticed Dimitri in the back behind Bucky's head in a couple of shots wearing a weird sleeping mask.
Oh,
Like googly eyes sleeping mask, trying to get some sleep. Sympathetic insomnia, maybe, with Balky Dimitri.
The sheep
has.
can't sleep, which is kind of funny because we
Sheep
also count
can't-
sheep,
yes.
which I thought was a funny thing that, like, a missed moment,
I
right?
thought they were going to go there. I thought when he asked them, how do people fall asleep in
Yeah.
Meepos, he'd be like, we count all the
and
sheep.
there's like a whole sheep theme to everything about Meepos, and then there are a couple sleep traditions in America, and they went with the Sandman one and did not write in about counting sheep, which I thought would be quite funny because then Balky would be like, why would you count sheep?
They're
On
right
Meepos,
there.
we
Yeah.
count sheep
Yes.
for this other total random tradition.
No, he'd be like, on Meepos, we count sheep. It keeps us up all night, cousin. We can't count all of them. Like counting sheep and counting sheep. I never understood how that makes somebody fall asleep. Like, that would keep me up. Because I'd be like, where was I? 17, 19, 203, 200. Why am I counting sheep? Where did that come from? Like the Sandman. Like, where do these weird things come from? It makes no sense.
So I don't know. Maybe they did write it and it got cut out. I feel like they must have written it because it's too obvious.
But maybe that's why they didn't go there, because it was
maybe
obvious.
because it was too obvious.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, we see Dimitri wearing a sleep mask. We see him in the second act as well on the kitchen table. Then we have some fun Balkyisms throughout the show. A cold day. It'll be a cold day in December before I do that. And don't be ridiculous is said a whopping 4 times, and one of those times it's in Meposian.
That is,
of course I have. Don't be ridiculous.
This is a very special. That's a very special episode. That's a record. One time in Meposian.
And then we have Balky's repeat from last week. That's a good point.
That's a very good point. And then Larry going, yes, sheep, yes.
Larry
owls,
taking
sheep,
credit
sheep.
for other people.
And then you got other great running gags throughout this episode. Larry grabs Balky by the shirt. Always love that. Marianne saying something profound. Again, I love that moment where she just gives a ridiculous reason for being smart. Does this come up again? And does she give other reasons for being smart? Like,
We'll find out.
I can't wait. And again, we see Jennifer not kissing Larry goodnight at the door. One of these days, Larry, without mistletoe, you'll get it. I don't. And you get Balky crying 3 times. I want to see the book.
I want to see the book.
And then
Balky's mother.
Which is great.
Now we've come to my favorite part of our show, which is called Perfect Strangers Today,
Yay.
in which we talk about if this situation were happening, if this episode was happening today, how would things be different?
Well,
what do you got?
Dude, the sleep industry today is actually quite a big, crazy thing with crazy apps and lights.
Like trackers on your wrist or rings that
your
like
iPhone tells you
record the data about your sleep.
I have my iPhone set to tell me when to go to bed so I get 8 hours.
I wear a Whoop strap product placement.
And then it tracks you while you're sleeping too.
Tells you, and it tells you the quality of your sleep, how recovered you are, all this stuff. And then it starts, once it learns your patterns, it starts to send you those notifications like it's time now to go to sleep and you should get this many hours.
It picks up on your rhythms, circadian rhythms a little bit.
Yeah, all
Nice.
that. So it's a whole industry. So there would have been a number of things. Larry would not have to pull out his college textbooks. There are even podcasts of Nick Offerman and others just like reading books in a soothing voice or like talking about nothing.
Yeah. It's so crazy. There's one called Sleep With Me. And, you know, when you make podcasts, everyone's advice is like, don't be boring. Be fun. Yeah. But this dude is purposely boring and people show up for live recordings.
That guy is huge. Yeah.
Yes, they show up just to take a nap while he's boringly talking and reading to them.
Such a good idea.
And what's the deal with ASMR videos? Does this help people go to sleep? It's not about sleep.
That's just people enjoying those sounds. But I think that's just about people enjoying those sounds. Okay. And it's very polarizing because I'm on the opposite side of that. Like I cannot
some people don't like chewy. But it's not just food. It's like people whispering and talking or scratching their beard or something. Weird thing.
Also, you know, what do we do now when we have like a health-related or wellness-related problem? We go straight to Google and we're like, best home remedies for
home cures
best
for
home
insomnia.
cures for insomnia.
I'm surprised he didn't have a crazy Maposian insomnia cure with wolfsbane and what's the other thing?
He probably does, and there wasn't enough time.
Also, I think in these days, if Balky was up now all night and he had a computer and the internet, he may get into some trouble by accidentally stumbling on the dark web or conspiracy sites.
Or at least like Reddit for 12 hours.
Reddit holes.
About insomnia, yeah.
He'd learn all sorts of useless things by the morning that he doesn't need to know. He's like, cousin, I could drive a manual car now.
Yeah.
I haven't slept in 5 days. And then finally, Balky keep in touch with the easy face video chats with his family.
I mean, back in 1987... you would have had to buy like an international calling card. You'd have to dial a bunch of numbers, and
it was a pain. Remember when you had to like pay for your minutes and
extra
things
for long distance calling?
Remember
long distance, by the way, even including like across state lines in some cases,
it became long distance. Yeah,
you had to have a special phone plan, an extra charge. Now, none of that, right? Now we're all on the internet.
As a bell.
We can Facebook, WhatsApp, Zoom, FaceTime.
So I think
any number of these
on
things.
MePost, the joke would have been they have one internet cafe and the Wi-Fi password is onions.
They have one Facebook account.
They have one Facebook account for the island of MePost. I have to wait till Uncle Stavros gets off of his cooking show. And then we could do the phone call.
Yeah,
that would be so funny.
That'd be perfect. They would have one Facebook account that the whole island shares.
But remember when we were little and our parents used to make those calls to Pakistan, and it was like that. You had to yell in the stupid phone.
They were yelling,
because
they were yelling.
It was a horrible connection, and it would take forever, and you had to yell back and forth.
I mean, our mother still yells into the phone.
Well, that's for different reasons,
that we can hear her better.
Yeah.
But... yeah, so even into the 90s, it was hard to 90s and the early noughts. It was hard to communicate internationally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Harder.
Yeah. I mean, and now she pulls it up on WhatsApp, and it's a crystal clear voice from Pakistan.
Perfect.
It's amazing. I was like, oh my god.
Oh, I talk to people all over the world.
Sounds like you're right here. Yeah.
So all that. What else? Are we missing anything that would be different today?
I think that's about it. I mean, you still need to move furniture to do aerobics. You need lots of room. I do that every day.
Yeah, for sure. You need workout room. that is our show for tonight. It was a good time, and actually, it's making me really sleepy.
Oh, time to go to bed. I'm going to grab my little
My body
Dimitri.
is talking to me and telling me to go to sleep. Join us again next week when the cousins go to a fancy art gallery opening.
Oh, you thought Larry's mansplaining was something this episode? Wait till next episode.
I'm going to be annoyed, aren't I?
He teaches Balky how to talk about art. It's fantastic.
Oh, boy. I cannot wait. So, dear listeners, if you are enjoying our show, please, please, please visit us at danceofjoypod.com. There you'll find all of the links for all of the podcast apps that you can find this show on. Please like us, listen, subscribe. If you really like us, it'd be great if you could leave us a rating and a review in Apple Podcasts. Otherwise, just send us a note. Tell us how you're feeling. There's a voice message button on our website, or you can email us at danceofjoypod@gmail.com.
Most importantly, share this show with a friend. Let's get the meepiats out there into the world. Get everybody making some ding ding mahmouds and running around going Balky. But share the show. Word of mouth is the best way to help us grow. Thank you for listening to Dance of Joy. And now we are so happy.
Now we are so happy we do the dance of joy.
Hey, Too many hates.
You can't have too many.